Welcome to Down the Road with me, Joel Heitkamp. We got a big lineup for you today. We're going to head out to the park. We're going to get an update on the fires that are going on in the Theodore Roosevelt National Park. We're also going to touch upon the Joe Biden, President Biden's infrastructure plan, what it would do, what it would mean, where some of that money would go, and why some people are against it. But there was an article that was brought to my attention in Successful Farming magazine. It was by their staff, and they interviewed a man named Gabe Brown, and he had testified in front of Congress about things that we can change when it comes to agriculture that might make us more successful financially and might be good for the environment as well. Those are two things I think we all would agree would be good things for us to do. Let's bring him in. Gabe, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Thanks, Joe. Good to be here today.
The obvious question is, when you got a chance to be in front of Congress and testify, what did you go there to say? What did you go there to do?
What I really went there for was to try and impose on the House Ag Committee that agriculture is and can be a part of the solution to many of the issues that society is facing today.
So when they brought you, I mean, nobody just gets to testify in front of the Ag Committee. Yeah, I mean, many people line it up, many people ask. I mean, they wanted to hear what you had to say. And of course, you and I both know there are people that don't believe in some of what you might have had to say. And when I visited with you on the radio show, what really got my attention was how you tied this back to the financial side. And I want you to walk people through that.
Sure. So I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, and whether you call it climate change, whether you call it lack of carbon in the soil, low farm profitability, the decimation of our rural communities, if your interest lies in clean water, if your interest lies in human health and the nutrient density of the food we produce, it doesn't matter to me. All of these things can be addressed, at least partially, through regenerative agriculture. And I guess I've become known over the past 20 plus years as being a big proponent of how do we work with our natural ecosystems in a way to increase farm profitability while having all these ancillary benefits that are good to society. And that's why they sought me out and asked me if I would testify in front of them.
Well, there's a body of work there. Gabe is the author of Dirt to Soil. Also, you know, regenerative ag, as he just said, and, you know, founder of the nonprofit, co-founder, I should say, of the Soil Health Academy. And so, and so that's going to bring people to the big question, which is, what are we doing wrong? What can we do differently to meet both of those goals?
Yeah, great question. And the answer is we have to take a step back. And I always get asked, why aren't more people doing regenerative ag? How do we get more people into it? Well, you don't know what you don't know. And after World War II, we went on this path where it was all about we got to produce more and more. And we do that by dumping copious amounts of inputs into ag, whether it be fertilizers, pesticides, fungicides, etc. And that's the way we produce more. But we tend to lose track along the way that many of those have a negative impact on the environment, and they cost farmers money. And I went down this path years ago because I needed to figure out, how am I going to be profitable in production agriculture? And what I found out over time is that we can come together and we can do the right thing to put more money in our pockets as farmers and ranchers, but that's also good for society in the long run. It provides us with clean air, clean water. It provides us with food that's higher in nutrient density. And so all these things come about if we change our production model.
So that being said, one of the big pushes that you've had was capturing carbon and making sure that you put carbon into the soil. Now, when many people think about carbon, uh, they think about a gas. They think it's released into society. They think of the ozone layer. They think of it gone. And so it begs the question, which is, how do you capture it as somebody out there that's, with all lack of, I'm not trying to diminish it, but that's raising cattle and raising a crop. How do you capture it? That's the big question.
Yes, and the beauty of it is you capture it with living plants. We all learned back in 7th grade biology class that plants take CO2 out of the atmosphere and they produce all of these carbon compounds. They use part of it for growth, but then part of it they pump out through their roots into the soil to feed biology. And it's that cycle with the biology in the soil that sequesters, so to speak, for lack of a better term, carbon. And we've done extensive testing on my ranch near Bismarck. And we've found that since I've moved down this path, I went no-till in 1994, started using these principles. We've sequestered an average of 325 to 525 metric tons of CO2 equivalent per acre. That's a significant amount of carbon. And I've done that by growing a very diverse cash crop rotation along with cover crops and then integrating livestock. And those are all important parts of the tool to taking carbon out of the atmosphere, putting it into the soil. And for me, most importantly, it's an important part of increasing my profitability.
Before 1994, when you went no-till, did you have a ranch? I know you're on the same ground. That isn't my question. Did you have cattle before that?
Yes, the ranch that my wife and I own today was actually founded by my in-laws in 1956. They farmed it from 56 to 91 using what I would call conventional methods, heavy tillage. They had some livestock, monoculture crop production, not a very diverse crop rotation. So it was in the conventional type model until my wife and I took it over and started no-tilling and moving down this path.
So one of the big pushes here is obviously the longer you can keep the plant in the ground, the more carbon you're going to capture. I understand that, but does that mean it's got to be a living plant? Does that mean that, for example, that if you're raising wheat, if you're raising barley, if you're raising oats, something that you harvest way quicker than anything else, that you're not reaching your goal?
And the answer is yes, it does have to be a living plant, but I want to make this perfectly clear. On my ranch, I grow corn, I grow barley, I grow wheat, I grow oats, I grow peas, all these different cash crops. But the difference between me and my neighbors is that I'm always going to have a living plant as long as possible. So as soon as I'm done harvesting, I'm out there putting a cover crop in. Look at now, it's early spring here in south central North Dakota, extremely dry. Not many people have started seeding yet, but I already have living plants because I seed fall seeded biennials such as cereal rye, winter triticale, hairy vetch. They germinate in the fall, so they're capturing some carbon in the fall, and then they also start growing immediately in the spring, and that captures more sunlight. Now I can go in there, I can terminate them and plant whatever cash crop. But see, it takes that carbon then to feed biology to fuel the system.
So I drive 65 miles one way to work every day. So do the math on that. It's at least 130 miles by the time I get home. Quite frankly, people ask me why. I tell them it's the best part of my day. Plus, I get to nose around. I get to look around. And I'm seeing plenty of tarrigators out there right now spreading fertilizer. Yep. Do you not spread fertilizer at all?
I used to. And I tell people, let me use this. And for the farmers, ranchers out there, this is going to be an eye-opener for many. So with our firm Understanding Ag, we're consulting on 22 million acres across the United States. Last year, we did a very big project in North Dakota, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, where we did what's called a total nutrient extraction down to 12 inches to figure out how much nutrients are really on farms and ranches. What we found on those 45 farms, in the top 12 inches of the soil profile, they have an average of 9,000 pounds of nitrogen, 2,300 pounds of phosphorus, 11,000 pounds of potassium. Joel, that's plenty of nutrients for any cash crop and then some. So you might say, well, why can't people just stop fertilizing and let the plants rely on those nutrients? The answer is because we've depleted the biology in the soil to where the biology is not there to cycle the nutrients. You know, you mentioned on your show Monday when you interviewed me that you saw that underwear tests being done and how on a no-till field, healthier soil, that the underwear was more consumed by biology. That's an excellent way of showing people that there's life in the soil. You know, Joel, there's more life in a teaspoonful of healthy soil than there are people on this planet. Yet how many farmers and ranchers really think about feeding that soil biology? And if you understand the nutrient cycle, even out there with the irrigators spreading those nutrients, it has to run through biology first. We need biology to cycle nutrients. So our goal at Understanding Ag is to show and educate producers that you can back significantly off on your synthetics over time as you advance soil health. That's going to put more money in your pockets, make you more profitable.
I just want to point out for those people who didn't hear the radio show that day, the underwear test that he's talking about was a seminar that I went to at the Prairie Dakota. Let's see, let me get the right, Katota Prairie, south of Rutland, North Dakota. And what they were doing was they had planted or placed underwear under different fields. And the field that was no-till actually ate up that underwear way more than what the other two had done. And it got my attention. And obviously it kind of, well, it does. It proves exactly what Gabe's talking about. When we come back, what I want to do is I want to talk to him about the financial side of this. I want to find out whether it's profitable and whether or not the yields are what, in any way, shape, or form, what they could be. So stick around. More with Gabe when we come back right here on Down the Road.
It's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hay bossing breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a comb roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the game. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, it's me, Anthony Sullivan. And yes, you've actually caught me at home relaxing because life's been pretty worry-free since I got coverage with American Residential Warranty.
You won't believe what ARW covers. Heating and air conditioning, washers and dryers, kitchen appliances, plumbing, water heaters, electrical systems, flat screens and laptops, even pools and spas, and so much more.
Call American Residential Warranty. They'll get you covered.
1-800-219-1467.
Hi, Hunter Ellis here for Night Hero Binoculars by Atomic Beam. These binoculars let you see anything, even in pitch black darkness. Gotcha.
The secrets are powerful wide-angle atomic beam laser that reveals objects up to 150 yards away, hidden by darkness.
During the day, Night Hero gives you 10 times magnification. And when the sun goes down, press the Night Bright button to see clearly in the dark. Light up garbage-eating critters or spot thieves before they even get close. Call or click now and get Night Hero binoculars for just $39.99. Order right now and you can double it. Plus, get our best-selling atomic beam flashlight. Just pay a separate fee. We'll even ship them to you free. This TV special offer is not available on Amazon. You can get it all, but you have to order now.
Call 1-800-619-1091. That's 1-800-619-1091. Or visit bynighthero.com. That's bynighthero.com. Order now.
Attention, have you or a loved one suffered from maculopathy, a serious retinal injury, after taking the prescription drug Elmiron for interstitial cystitis or bladder pain syndrome? In 2018, a researcher at the Emory School of Medicine linked Elmiron, a prescription drug that treats interstitial cystitis or bladder pain syndrome, to maculopathy, which is sight-threatening and can cause an abrupt change of vision. Call Elmiron Justice for a free legal consultation.
Please call 800-395-5680.
Non-attorney spokesperson. This is a paid advertisement for legal services sponsored by Nightline Legal. Cases assigned on a random basis to participating law firms. This drug remains approved by the FDA. If you or a loved one regularly took Zantac and were later diagnosed with cancer, call right now. You may be entitled to financial compensation. Potential cancers include bladder cancer, colon cancer, kidney cancer, stomach cancer, liver cancer, pancreatic cancer. Do not stop taking a prescribed medication without first consulting with your doctor. Discontinuing a prescribed medication without your doctor's advice can result in injury or death.
Call 1-800-230-9210.
Welcome back to Down the Road. We're going to continue our conversation with Gabe Brown. I just find it incredibly interesting growing up in an ag community as I have. I'm not a farmer, but you know, the guys wearing tuxedos in my wedding were farmers, and so I've lived in a farm community for a long, long time. Gabe is with Understanding Ag, and what we've been talking about is nutrients in the soil. Before the break, Gabe, we talked about profitability. And wanted to make sure that the people watching down the road understand whether or not you can make money doing this and what the yields are if you're giving up yield for the philosophy that you have about nutrients in the soil. I'll let you take it from there.
Sure, great question. And one of the real issues I think we have in the agricultural model today is we focused on yield and pounds, and we haven't focused on profit. There's a big difference between the two. And I tell people I will take profit over yield in pounds any day, because with profit, I can stay in business. Just because I can grow 200 bushel corn, I may not stay in business if my costs are high. So it takes a little bit of a mind switch. Now, the current federal farm program is based on rewarding farmers for yield. It has nothing to do with profit. It has nothing to do with all these ancillary benefits of clean water, carbon in the soil, etc. Interestingly enough, Joel, I was just here on Monday on a Zoom meeting with some members of the British Parliament, and they have moved away from a system that focuses on paying farmers based on yield, and they're moving to a system which is totally farmers' payments will be based on the amount of carbon they sequester, the biodiversity that they have on their farm or ranch, what they're doing for clean water, what they're doing for a reduction in these other inputs. And so that's unique, and I'm sure the United States will see some pressure down the road to go to a model similar. Now, getting back to your question on profitability. So on my own ranch, we've increased profitability tenfold since we've gone down the regenerative path. I just received a study in the email today that was done by a friend of mine who he grows corn, beans, winter wheat, and cover crops. Okay, cover crops each year, but major cover crops following the winter wheat. They compared it to a neighbor who was in a corn bean rotation, no-till, and another neighbor who was in a corn bean rotation with tillage. What they found is that over that 3-year period, he was each year annually $135 per acre more profitable on each acre per year, $135 an acre. Why? Because he was able to cut his input costs. Now, were his yields, are my yields as high as my neighbors? Perhaps not. Now, in saying that, my proven corn yield is still 25% higher than county average. Okay, that's not bad. There's a lot of people who grow higher yields than me, but I will compare the profitability of my operation against any of them. You know, instead of going to the coffee shop and bragging about yield or pounds, let's go brag about profitability sometime. And I refuse to take any government subsidies of any kind. I do not take part in crop insurance, EQIP, CSP, any of those, and I haven't for years. I don't need the American taxpayer subsidizing my business. I can make a profit without those subsidies.
But I knew that. You know, I had spoke to you before about that. How do you do that? I mean, and here's the obvious question. It is for land, to compete for land, you're going to pay cash rent to somebody. You're fair to say you don't own every acre you farm?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So you're paying cash rent to somebody.
Yep.
And one day the hailstorm comes through, you get wiped out, or maybe even 2 years in a row, for all you know, and you don't have federal crop insurance, and the neighbor does, and pretty soon he can afford to pay more for that per acre when the cash rent comes up. I mean, how do you make that work, Gabe?
Yeah, I own, of the 6,000 acres, we own approximately a third of it, rent and lease 2/3 of it from a number of different individuals. And I always get asked that question. And here's what I tell people. I have people coming to me every year asking me to rent their land and do to their land what I'm doing to mine. They drive by, they see the cover crops, they see the livestock grazing, they see the cash crops. They want that on their land. And usually I turn them down because I like to tell people we're not addicted to work. I'm not out there just looking for more work. I'm plenty busy the way it is. But in saying that, they have to have skin in the game. I now have landlords who believe in what I'm doing. They've seen the changes on their land. They want us to farm it. Okay, I will do that, but I'm not going to pay you as high a rent as somebody who is just farming the government and chasing high yields, because you'll end up with land that won't infiltrate water. There won't be any wildlife on it, or very little. And do you want to be in that production model? So I actually have people coming to me offering me their land at a much reduced price, just so they can get these practices done on their land.
So if that land does transfer, it goes from you to another renter, for example, how long does he or she get the benefit of that? Does this play out in a year of what you've built up in that land? Does it play out in 2 years? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because just this past year, I had some land I leased for 30 years, and the owner decided to sell it. And they did offer it to me first, but realize I'm more or less farming in the city of Bismarck's jurisdiction. So land prices are very inflated due to development costs. And so I said, no, at my age, I really don't care to take that on. So I let it go. Well, another individual came in and bought it, and they basically took, 25 plus years of no-till and disced it up. They're going to get the benefits of that carbon in the soil for about 5 years, but they're going to quickly deplete all that carbon I put in the soil just through the active tillage and their monoculture production practices.
Gabe, I don't think there really needs to be a debate about global warming. I think we all know that the Earth is getting warmer, but the debate over what's causing it is really where the debate is at. Do you? And I have to ask you. You have these talks based upon profit, and I understand that, based upon practice and work and everything involved. But do you believe that man is causing global warming?
To some degree, yes, definitely. And I don't think anybody could argue that point. Look, I'll use my ranch as an example. When my wife and I purchased this from her parents in 1991, organic matter levels were from 1.7 to 1.9%. Now, soil scientists tell us, historically speaking, central part of North Dakota was probably in the 7 to 8% organic matter range. In other words, 75% of the carbon that was once in the soil is now in the atmosphere. That's due directly to the previous farming practices. Okay, now today, we've increased organic matter in our soils. We're from 5.3 to 7.9%. So I tell people I'm still degraded. I'm not what it once was, but I'm a lot closer. And so that has to have, some effect. We have that carbon in the atmosphere. We need to bring it back down in the soil.
So you say that you don't involve yourself in government programs. I understand it. And now I really understand why you're doing that. But should the government then be involved in telling people that this is how you have to farm?
I think the government can play a role, Joel, and I want to make this perfectly clear. When I started farming and ranching, and when I went through my 4 years of hail and drought, I did take advantage of EQIP and CSP programs. And I think there's a place for those in starting people out. But let's be honest, too often a lot of those programs, they become nothing but an entitlement. We need to target those programs to move people in the right direction. That, along with a change in how consumers spend their money and where they buy, will drive change on the landscape.
Gabe, where do people find your work?
So they can go to our websites, understandingag.com or soilhealthacademy.org.
I want you to know that in high school, I would have loved sitting next to you in science class just to stay eligible for football, if nothing else. So appreciate you coming down the road with us.
Thank you, Joel. Pleasure to be with you.
Gabe Brown, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we're going to head to Moody's. We're going to get a chance to visit with an individual that can break down Joe Biden's infrastructure plan. So stick around. We're going to keep going down the road.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and as you know, my passion is to help each and every one of you get the best sleep of your life. That's why I created my new Giza Dreams bed sheets. The first night you sleep on my sheets, you'll never want to sleep on anything else.
Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen right now to get your very own MyPillow Giza Dream sheets. When you buy one set of sheets, you'll get another set absolutely free.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Introducing the Cool Turtle, the ultra-comfortable mask enhancer that creates a protective, cool, and breathable space between your mask and your face. Simply slide under any mask or gaiter and immediately feel the refreshing pocket of air surrounding your face. Cool Turtle's ergonomically designed, soft, comfortable shell immediately reduces mask friction, allowing you to breathe and talk in a comfortable environment.
I can actually breathe. With the Cool Turtle, no more sweating.
It's like I don't even have a mask on.
Call now and get not one, not two, but 3 Cool Turtles for just $10. Order now and we'll send you 2 more Cool Turtles free. No fees, absolutely free. Plus, you can get a 10-pack of 4-ply face masks. Just pay a separate fee. This offer is not available on Amazon. Get the real Cool Turtle now.
Call 1-800-270-1219. That's 1-800-270-1219. Or visit getcoolturtle.com. Order now.
Indoor football is back in Bismarck. Bucks football season is right around the corner. Grab a friend or family member for a night of action-packed, hard-hitting entertainment. The Bucks open at the Bismarck Event Center May 8th as they take on the Massachusetts Pirates. Catch the sweetest seats in the house right on the sidelines with VIP service at a Bucks turf table. Available now for single-game purchases. Secure your tickets today by calling 701-595-0771. Bucks football, half the field and double the fun.
I'm Rick Becker from No Apologies. Welcome to your after-hours oasis of sanity.
How can these people not see that they're just clowns?
We help simplify and educate you on things going on in the legislature and around the country.
Asking the hard-hitting questions.
But also having Lee Stack and Sid and Marty Croft stuff, and we've talked about that sometimes. It's bad.
Watch us weeknights at 9 Central on Beck News and online at beck.news.
Welcome back to Down the Road. We're going to head to Moody's now. Kurt Krummenacker is going to join us, and Kurt is Moody's Senior Vice President. Kurt, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Yeah, my pleasure, Joel. Thanks.
It's playing out nationally all over the place. People that are for, people that are against, people in West Virginia that basically hold the keys to the whole gall darn pickup when it comes to it. But President Joe Biden's infrastructure plan, what it does, what it doesn't do. And that's one of the reasons we called you, and we're delighted when you said yes. Could you walk me through it? What is this infrastructure bill do?
Sure. Well, this is a plan that has a scope to it. It covers a much wider array of what you would call infrastructure. Most people think of infrastructure as the stuff we see and touch every day: roads, rails, power lines, airports. But this touches on a much broader definition of infrastructure that goes down to a lot of the sort of the less sexy aspects of infrastructure. So a lot of people can talk to you probably about the maintenance of the carpets in Fargo airports, but do they know how many wastewater treatment plants are running around outside of Fargo? Probably not. So this is really intended to go a little bit deeper down into the scope and touch some of these unsexy projects. Now, there's a number of other aspects of this plan that touch on priorities of the administration that are arguably infrastructure that seem to touch on a broader scope of initiatives that they want to touch on that may or may not be classified as infrastructure. But by and large, there's a lot of infrastructure support here when you think about the word infrastructure from a large scope.
Gabe, I want to give you some examples what I think you're talking about. In 1972, I was just a kid in Little Manador, North Dakota. Everybody had a well, and the wells didn't work half the time. And the city didn't have a city water or a sewer system. They didn't have a city water system as well. And in 1972, because of the legislation then, they went around to a lot of these small towns and they put a city sewer system in. We had septic tanks, and my family had 9 people in a house. To say that the septic tank got full fast would be a gross understatement. I, for 23 years of my life, managed a rural water district, and I'm sure you know what rural water is. Miles upon miles, actually had 2,800 miles of water pipe that went around from farm to farm and made sure that farmers and ranchers and people living in rural areas had good quality water. I'm an infrastructure guy. My time in the legislature, I pushed for infrastructure. How are we as America standing up to those same tests that my dad passed, that they put in?
Well, the underfunding of our infrastructure has been covered far and wide in the media, through the American Society of Civil Engineers. There are no shortage of people out there that want to talk about how much we've been missing the gap in terms of the funding that is needed in infrastructure. Part of the struggle is that there's sort of no end to it. And it's difficult to define. When is a bridge deficient is pretty obvious to an engineer, but the gradations from being sterling and brand new to being still usable, for most of us, we don't really notice much of that. Now, your experience in the rural water is probably a great one, because that is those are areas that require a lot of maintenance. It is not something that is seen until a water main breaks and suddenly there's a flood, or worse, a downtown area where someone's basement that gets flooded, and there's a disruption to the economic conditions. So the need to continue to invest in infrastructure has a specific economic impact because of those types of things on a small scale. But then on a larger scale, the same is true when we're not keeping up with our maintenance funding for airports or for the road system or for our seaports. There is either a funding need that those entities that are running that have to overcome, or there is an impact to the customer service.
So in my other job, I get in a motorhome and I travel all over the state now and do a radio show, and I couldn't do it without broadband. I couldn't do it without broadband. North Dakota and the Broadband Association of North Dakota has led the way in more of these rural states. They saw it coming. They jumped on the bus and they used every grant they could to build a great broadband system. Other states haven't. Full disclosure, I'm a Democrat, so let me call out a Republican. There was a Republican congressman recently that said broadband is not infrastructure. I'm just going to ask you, is broadband infrastructure?
Well, I'm certainly not going. I'm a credit guy. I'm going to stay on the credit path. I'm not going to get involved in that is for someone else to decide. Certainly broadband is delivering a necessary communication need to our population. That need has increased as we've moved to a much greater online environment, certainly the learning environment. So however you categorize it, the need for expanded broadband is certainly there, as the need for telephone wires were 100 years ago, and the need for roads were, 50 or 60 years ago.
Well, Kurt, you had to give me a shot at trying anyway. I don't blame you one bit for not falling for that. I want to talk to you about the passage of the bill, because there's a lot of people that believe it's too big. There's a lot of people who believe it adds too much to the deficit. There's a certain senator in West Virginia that I know quite well, and I've had the opportunity to meet many times, who says the way that the bill is funded is going to cause a recession in North Dakota, in the United States. Is this bill going to pass? Is it too big?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, the folks like yourself who are more read into the politics of it, probably have a better chance of answering that question than I do. It's certainly large, but it's interesting when you break it down, because of that scope I was talking about earlier. When you spread it out over 50 states, over 8 years, over all of the aspects that are covered in it, the impact of it really isn't that big in any one particular area. So, while it seems like a large bill because the numbers are breathtaking, the span and the length of it actually starts to mitigate the amount of impact that it would have on our, kind of various sectors in the economy, whether it's the airport sector, the seaport sector. To put a fine point on it, you take the $25 billion that's proposed for the airport sector, and that is just a fraction. That's spent over 8 years. That's a fraction of the $115 billion that the industry says they need to spend over the next 5.
So let me ask you this. When you look at some of this infrastructure that's needed, and you look at it from a business sense, business is about competition, and it's about competition that involves overseas competition. The economy is global. You and I both know that. Other countries' infrastructure is what we're up against at times. What do you see there? Does this make our businesses in the United States, Kurt, more competitive than some of our competitors overseas?
Yeah, this is what the business community has been calling for. This kind of investment to make sure, or maybe even a bigger investment in some cases, to make sure the assets that they're using, whether it's the roadways to deliver packages, whether it's the airports to move people around, are getting the funding they need in order for them to be as productive as they can be. That's certainly one of the key value areas of infrastructure, is that you get this virtuous cycle of investing in it will improve the economics of the local area, because it will produce jobs, construction jobs. It will produce additional businesses that will then hire additional people. But then just by virtue of having that infrastructure, it will then generate a need for or the ability to support further business conditions. And so, so it certainly goes hand in hand with an improvement in business conditions.
How much is calculated into the one-time or the union job? The guys that came in and built that rural water district I was talking about, they made good money. They came in and did a great job, but I never saw them again after they were done. So how much is calculated into that in regards to how it'll affect our economy?
Yeah, I mean, in this case, it's so difficult to say, right? So you're covering such a wide variety of industries here. You're right on the money. I mean, if you're just going to come in and build a new roadway or a new lane addition to a road, obviously that's going to have a limited short-term impact in terms of the specific jobs that are coming from the infrastructure itself. But I think there's that indirect impact. That road now allows you to expand the business that's occurring at either end of it in order to local economies. So, but within this bill, there's obviously another end of that where there's supporting other industries like some of the personal care industries, or even the move to electric vehicles, which would intend to kind of jumpstart a new industry that would involve additional private investment that would kind of come on the back of it to expand a new area of infrastructure.
Yeah. Well, I thank you. I thank you for coming on. Kurt, if people want to find your work, many of us know about Moody's and we keep an eye on it and enjoy the heck out of it. But where do people find your work? Great.
Yeah, Moody's.com. We've got all of our research available, and our ratings are available publicly. So, please come check it out. We do a lot of work, broadly speaking, across the capital markets.
Thank you. Thanks for the time as we headed down the road. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
You bet. When we come back, Wendy Ross is going to join us. Wendy is the Theodore Roosevelt National Park Superintendent. It's on fire in the North Unit. We'll find out how that firefight is going when we head down the road.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and as you know, my passion is to help each and every one of you get the best sleep of your life. That's why I created my new Giza Dreams bed sheets. I started by using the world's best cotton called Giza. It's only grown in a region between the Sahara Desert, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Nile River. It's ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. My Giza sheets also include full 21-inch wide pillowcases that will fit over any pillow and deep pocket sheets that will fit over any mattress. The first night you sleep on my sheets, you'll never want to sleep on anything else.
Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen right now to get your very own MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets. Giza Dream Sheets are available in a variety of colors. Use your promo code, and for a limited time, when you buy one set of sheets, you'll get another set absolutely free.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Non-attorney spokesperson. This is a paid advertisement for legal services sponsored by Nightline Legal. Cases assigned on a random basis to participating law firms. This drug remains approved by the FDA. If you or a loved one regularly took Zantac and were later diagnosed with cancer, call right now. You may be entitled to financial compensation. Potential cancers include bladder cancer, colon cancer, kidney cancer, stomach cancer, liver cancer, pancreatic cancer. Do not stop taking a prescribed medication without first consulting with your doctor. Discontinuing a prescribed medication without your doctor's advice can result in injury or death.
Call 1-800-230-9210.
Seniors, are you aware that you could pay less for your car insurance?
Seniors can save money on their car insurance.
You might save a little, you might save a lot.
Maybe hundreds of dollars a year.
You might save 5% a year, maybe 10%, 15%, or even more.
That's a lot of money.
So call right now and find out just how much money you might be able to save.
1-800-699-0761. 1-800-699-0761.
Watch No Filter with me, Debbie Schlussel, for no-nonsense, unfiltered analysis of the news that matters to you. You'll see engaging guests.
It began a 444-day nightmare.
Entertaining analysis. And it has everything to do with something that happened in history. And honest movie reviews. Trust me, this is just atrocious. No Filter with Debbie, weeknights at 10 p.m. Central on Beck News and online at beck.news.
Hi, it's me, Anthony Sullivan. And yes, you've actually caught me at home relaxing because life's been pretty worry-free since I got coverage with American Residential Warranty.
You won't believe what ARW covers. Heating and air conditioning, washers and dryers, kitchen appliances, plumbing, water heaters, electrical systems, flat screens and laptops, even pools and spas, and so much more.
Call American Residential Warranty. They'll get you covered.
1-800-219-1467.
Welcome back to Down the Road. We thought we were going to have an opportunity to visit with Wendy Ross, the Theodore Roosevelt National Park Superintendent. We're not going to. And the reason we're not going to is she's busy. They're putting out a fire. She's getting pulled 100 different directions. So we'll try to bring her to you another time. I certainly understand why she's not available to join us here down the road. So there's a couple things that I want to bring to your attention, a couple pieces of legislation I want you to take a look at. One is 2304, which is a bill that requires and pushes for the enactment of Native American studies and tribal history in our public schools and in our schools to get your degree. It doesn't matter if you're public or private because the state still has the right to say, look, you got to teach them this or they're not going to get a degree. The other bill I want you to take a look at is 2232. Now, that's a bill that calls Juneteenth. Okay, that's the 19th of June. We'll get to that one in just a second. The bill 2304 is a bill that, when you look at it, it dictates and says that in our studies, you will take a look at Native American issues and Native American culture and Native American life. Now, you might say, well, that's the state mandating and dictating a curriculum, but know this, they already do. They already do. Let me give you this is basically section 15 -1 through 24-01. If you go there in a century code, which for many of you doesn't mean a doggone thing, but if you type that in, what you're going to find is you're going to find the criteria for public education. You're going to find social studies, including the United States Constitution, United States history, geography, government, and North Dakota studies with an emphasis on geography and history. And now including, or a push to include, the federally recognized Indian tribes in the state. And also, of course, in that portion, agriculture of the state, and all that happens in the 4th and 8th grades. And so they're saying you got to take a look at this now, along with all those other things. They're not talking about this much time. They're not talking about that. They're trying to talk about education. And then you go on to other amendments in this. We're talking about public and non-public schools. They have to provide that instruction, as I pointed out a little bit earlier. It goes on, and it talks about science, all the things that you know from taking science. They talk about issues that include physical science, biology, all of those things. But 1 unit of U.S. history is required when it comes to social studies. Now, that would include Native American tribal history. That doesn't say 1 unit of Native American tribal history. What it says is that when you look at the unit of United States history, that it is to include a discussion on Native American tribal history, right? You know, and it goes on to point that out in social studies later on. Here's the problem. We had people vote against that. We had people vote against that. We had people that made an argument against that said we shouldn't have that. Now, it passed. It passed. Even in the conservative North Dakota House, it passed. But one of the individuals that didn't vote for it is an individual that you see on this very network, which is State Representative Rick Becker. Now, let's go to Senate Bill 2232. Now, what does that bill do? That bill is called the Juneteenth bill. Now, that makes the 19th of June a state holiday in the sense that we recognize the end of slavery. So it's the end of slavery. Now, this isn't a state holiday in terms of everybody taking the day off. This isn't a state holiday in the sense that every state employee or any state employee gets the day off, gets a paid vacation. That isn't what this is. This is a recognition by our state that that was the end of slavery. And it's a way to honor what happened for all of those soldiers that fought to free the blacks in our country, that fought to free the slaves. That's what the bill was about. That's what the recognition was about. And let me just add this. We are one of 48 states, once this passes, and once the governor signs this, we are one of 48 states that have passed this. 48. The only other 2 that haven't are Alaska, which, by the way, huge Native American population. So my suspicion is they're going to take the example of other states and do the same thing. And Hawaii, which is a state that I know quite well, and the people in it, and I can vouch for this, they will pass it. So we're sitting here, and actually I think South Dakota is one of them as well, to get to the 47. So I don't mind being ahead of South Dakota. But 22 people voted against us. Again, one of those same individuals that I talked about earlier, State Representative Becker. But, you know, not to single him out, but one of the arguments he made on the floor, I visited on my radio show with Austin Schauer. Now, Austin carried this to the floor and made the argument to the floor. And one of the issues that Austin said that Rick Becker used to say we shouldn't pass this are that we didn't have blacks in the state. Meaning then, okay? That's how I took what Austin Schauer said. Well, here's another fact. We weren't a state. Now, what we did have in this state and what Becker voted against was the issue when it came to Native Americans and Native American studies. So which one is it? Are you voting against the legislation to recognize the end of slavery because of the fact that, in your opinion, we didn't need to address it as a state because that wasn't an issue in this state because of the lack of presence of black people in the state? Or are you voting against Native American issues because we did have Native American issues? We did have Native Americans in our state. Which one is it? I mean, which one is it? The state legislators from my district voted the same way Becker did, which to me, quite frankly, is embarrassing. It's embarrassing that we as a state would be perceived as not recognizing the end of slavery when there's no cost to us as a state, none whatsoever. So there's words that are used. There are words that are used. You can go ahead and use them if you want. I know what I use to describe these individuals that won't recognize it, that talk out of both sides of their mouth, that sit here and say one day, well, this isn't an issue because, quite frankly, we didn't have that issue as a state. And then on the other side of the mouth say, well, we don't need to study this. When we did have that issue in our state, which one is it? Which one is it? That's what I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what I challenge you to ask these 22 legislators that couldn't stand up as a state and recognize the end of slavery. We'll have some closing comments for you here as we go down the road.
Do you worry about going to the dentist? After all, a visit to the dentist can easily cost $2,000 or more. Well, relax. The Carefree Dental Card is now available in your area. Call now and we'll send your actual card at no cost today. With the Carefree Dental Card, you go to the dentist whenever you need and you instantly pay a lot less. Activate your card and you can start using it immediately. From exams and cleanings to more expensive procedures like crowns, dentures, even braces, they're all included with the Carefree Dental Card. Say you go to the dentist today without any card and your bill is, well, ouch. Wait a minute, let's try that again. You go to the dentist today and show your Carefree Dental Card, you save $525. The Carefree Dental Card is just $15.95 a month, so call now and make going to the dentist carefree.
Call 1-800-416-5739 to receive your Carefree Dental Card information kit. 1-800-416-5739. Call now.
I can't say enough good things about these nano hearing aids.
Real people talking about nano hearing aids.
The hearing quality is great.
Until now, hearing aids used to be too expensive for the average person. Until Nano. Call now and you'll get your Nano hearing aids for only $297. You'll save $100. When you buy one hearing aid, Nano will give you a second hearing aid free. Call right now.
1-800-213-3815.
We're the ladies of Another View, bringing you a fresh view on local issues.
Thank you for your patience and understanding.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that the most condescending, rude email you've ever received?
Well, welcome to
National
the third
news.
term of a certain president. I really believe that.
And different perspectives you won't get on the mainstream media. Watch us weekday afternoons at 4:30 Central Time on Beck News and at beck.news.
Who do you trust with your digital life? Not all cloud backup providers keep your data truly private. Beck Cloud Backup uses advanced multi-layer encryption to keep your family photos, videos, and sensitive business documents secure and only for your eyes. Your Beck Lightband Internet service already includes 50 gigs of free storage to keep your digital life safe and secure. Call us at 701-475-2361 to start using your Beck Cloud Backup today.
Attention! Have you or a loved one suffered from maculopathy, a serious retinal injury, after taking the prescription drug Almiron for interstitial cystitis or bladder pain syndrome? In 2018, a researcher at the Emory School of Medicine linked Elmiron, a prescription drug that treats interstitial cystitis or bladder pain syndrome, to maculopathy, which is sight-threatening and can cause an abrupt change of vision. Call Elmiron Justice for a free legal consultation.
Please call 800-395-5680.
Well, we're about there. Our trip's about to end as we headed down the road. But recently I had an individual ask me, because he's a fan of the show. He watches the show, and he said, you know, Joel, you get a lot of Democrats on your show. I don't apologize for that. I don't apologize one bit for that. In fact, I think it's great that Beck News has allowed this platform to be used by me to be able to give another perspective of what is going on out there and another perspective of the different side of that debate. And quite frankly, if you look at it and you're a consistent viewer, I would argue I'm pretty outnumbered. I would argue I'm very outnumbered. So I'm not backing off on that. I'm not going to apologize on that. I'm going to continue to make sure that another perspective is heard, and it's heard through this show. Kind of think that's what they brought me in for. But I will tell you this, if they want me, that's what they're going to get. And so you need to keep that in mind. The other thing I think we do quite well, and today's a perfect example, is we bring you different stories. We bring you different viewpoints in the area of, it's not always politics. It's not. I'm proud of that as well. We talked about regenerative ag today. That's what we talked about. It was an absolutely fabulous story. Now, some are going to tie that into global warming. Well, you know what? If it helps global warming, if we can do something that brings profit into farmers and ranchers' pockets and at the same time help the environment, why would we hate that? Why would we argue about that? And so, yes, I'm going to point out when I think some of these people are talking out of both sides of their mouth. I'm going to point out when somebody votes against a bill concerning and helping Native American history and then uses a different excuse to vote against the bill that recognizes the end of slavery. I'm going to keep doing it no matter what they say about me. It's been good riding with you, folks.